Friends, before you start reading this story, please do two simple things to help our channel grow. First, subscribe if you're interested in firearms and their real, unvarnished history. Second, after reading, be sure to write comments. Your opinion is priceless to us. And now let's dive into the legend. The Conspiracy of Steel and Spirit, the incredible saga of the Mauser 98, which forever changed our world. Imaginating, mud, cold, the whistle of bullets and the blast of shells. The First World War. A soldier, wrapped in a soaked overcoat, stares into the distance through the slit of a steel helmet. His life, his chance to survive and win, is in his hands. Literally, a wooden stock, cold metal, and absolute, almost mystical reliability. This is not just a rifle. It is an extension of his arm, the will of the command embodied in metal, and the final argument in the struggle for life. This is the WWII, the rifle with which Germany stepped into one of the bloodiest conflicts in human history. Now, fast forward 25 years. The summer of 1941. The vast expanses of the Soviet Union. Tank wedges, lightning attacks by dive bombers, and again the infantrymen. But he is different now. He is part of a new mobile war, the Blitzkrieg. And in his hands is no longer a long infantry pike, but a shortened, agile, yet equally reliable carbine. The Karabiner 98K. The same soul, but a new body. The same lethal efficiency, but adapted to the new, frantic rhythms. How could one design, born in the minds of brilliant engineers at the end of the 19th century, pass through 2 world wars, dozens of local conflicts, and live to this day, becoming a benchmark? Why was it copied, imitated, but never surpassed in its main parameter, reliability? This is not just a story about a weapon. This is a story of engineering thought, economics, politics, and human destiny. This is the saga of the Mauser 98. Sit back, it's going to be interesting. Birth of a legend. WRII 98, the steel backbone of an empire. The end of the 19th century. The world is on the verge of monumental change. The Industrial Revolution changed everything, including the approach to warfare. Old muzzle-loading rifles were becoming a thing of the past. Magazine-fed systems, capable of frequent and aimed fire, were taking the stage. In this arms race, Germany, a young but ambitious empire, could not afford to fall behind. And then he appears, Paul Mauser, a man, legend. Not just an engineer, but a true visionary in the world of weapons. His surname would become a household name, like Colt or Browning. He didn't invent the wheel, he perfected it, bringing it to absolute perfection. Work on the famous bolt went on for years. There were models from 1871, 88, and 93. But it was in 1898 that the qualitative leap happened. Genius in the details, the bolt that changed everything. Let's talk in simple terms about what Mauser invented that was so revolutionary. Imagine the bolt. It's a metal plug at the breech end of the barrel that locks the cartridge in place at the moment of firing, preventing the hot gases from hitting the shooter's face. Well, before Mauser, there were different systems. But Paul came up with something brilliant, a longitudinally sliding bolt with 2 main front-locking lugs and 1 additional safety lug. What does that mean in plain language? 2 massive lugs, when the handle was turned, engaged with corresponding recesses in the receiver, locking the bolt solidly. It's like closing a door with 2 sturdy steel bolts. But Mauser was a pedantic German and thought, what if something goes wrong? If the cartridge is defective and the pressure is extreme? And he added a 3rd safety lug. This was a kind of plan B. If the 2 main lugs failed, which practically never happened, the 3rd one would engage and save the shooter's life by absorbing the residual energy. This triple safety system is Mauser's hallmark. It spawned the saying, German weapons are never unreliable. There were other features. Controlled extraction. The bolt had a massive extractor that firmly gripped the cartridge case by the rim and would not release it until you pushed the bolt forward or opened it for extraction. This solved the problem of case ruptures. Case ejection, an elegant and simple spring ejector that kicked the spent case out of the receiver as soon as it cleared the chamber. Open sights, simple but effective sights, adjustable for range. The rear sight was stepped, allowing for quick adjustment to standard distances. Tactical and technical excellence, numbers that speak for themselves. The WWII rifle was a true giant. Its overall length was 1,250 millimeters. The barrel length alone was 740 millimeters. Imagine a bayonet almost a meter long. This was a weapon for line infantry, for fighting standing tall. Its weight without cartridges was 4.1 kilograms. Substantial, but this mass helped dampen the recoil of the powerful cartridge. Now, the cartridge deserves special mention. 7.92 by 57 millimeters. This was one of the most powerful rifle cartridges of its time. Initially, the Patroni 88 was used, and from 1904, the even more improved S. Patroni with a pointed bullet instead of a round-nosed one. The initial velocity of the bullet was 880 meters per second, an incredible speed. The bullet flew on a flat trajectory and far, easily piercing brick walls and light cover. The stated sighting range was up to 1,500 meters. Of course, hitting a single target at that distance was almost impossible, but for group targets or area fire, it was a formidable indicator. Feeding was from a non-detachable magazine holding 5 cartridges. It was loaded using a stripper clip, a metal plate holding 5 cartridges. The soldier would insert the clip into special guides in the receiver and push all 5 cartridges down into the magazine at once with his thumb. After that, the empty clip had to be discarded. Fast, convenient, effective. Baptism by fire and path to eternity. The first major conflict for the new rifle was the suppression of the Boxer Rebellion in China from 1900 to 1901. But the real test was, of course, the First World War. In the trenches of France and Belgium, the WWII earned its reputation. German soldiers revered it. The British with their Lee Enfields and the French with their Lebels respected it for its accuracy and reliability. It was a symbol of the German soldier, just like the Stahlhelm steel helmet. But the war also revealed shortcomings. The long rifle was inconvenient in cramped trenches, difficult to maneuver with during an attack when jumping into trenches. The world was changing, and tactics were changing with it. Infantry weapons had to become shorter, more maneuverable. The seed for future evolution was sown. Evolution, birth of the short king, Carabiner 98K. The Nazis' rise to power in 1933 marked a new era. Germany was casting off the chains of the Versailles Treaty and beginning to build a new, modern army. The doctrine of blitzkrieg lightning war, relying on speed, mobility, and the interaction of tanks, aircraft, and infantry was born. The long infantry rifle model, 1898, did not fit into this doctrine. Something more compact was needed. But not just a sawed-off barrel, the design needed to be rethought. The basis was not the Gewehr 98 itself, but its post-war modifications, the Carabiner 98B, which was essentially the same long rifle, but with a changed sling attachment, and the export standard model from 1924, which were shorter. The result of these developments was the Carabiner 98K from the German Kurs, meaning short. It was officially adopted on June 21, 1935. Interestingly, by the standards of other armies, it was still a full-size rifle, but by German classification, a carbine. Quite a paradox. What changed in the 98K? Dimensions and weight. Overall length was reduced to 1,110 millimeters, a whole 14 centimeters shorter. Barrel length to 600 millimeters. Weight dropped to 3.7 to 4.1 kilograms. The difference seems small, but for a soldier carrying all his gear for dozens of kilometers, every gram counts. Bent bolt handle. This was a brilliant and simple solution. On the Gewehr 98, the handle was straight. To reload it from a prone position, you had to raise your elbow, exposing yourself to enemy fire. On the 98K, the handle was bent down. Now the soldier could operate the bolt, barely lifting his elbow from the ground, remaining under cover. Automatic clip ejection. Another small detail saving precious seconds in battle. On the old model, the empty clip after loading had to be picked out with fingers. On the new one, when you pulled the bolt back after the last cartridge, a special mechanism automatically ejected the empty clip from the chamber with a loud clang. Fast and efficient. Sling attachment. It was moved to the side, making it cavalry style, which was more convenient for carrying. The 98K became the workhorse of the Wehrmacht. New, shorter bayonets, SG-8498s, were created for it, which were also a universal tool, a hammer, screwdriver, can opener. It went through all the campaigns of World War II, from Poland to Stalingrad and Normandy. Economic background and analysis, the steel fist of the German war machine. Let's step away from engineering for a moment and look at this story from an economic perspective. Producing millions of rifles is a colossal project requiring gigantic resources and organization. Industrial mobilization. By 1939, dozens of companies were involved in the production of the 98K. This wasn't just the Mauser concern itself. Rifles were produced by Sauer-Sohn, Steyr-Daimler-Puch, Bergmann, Guslaufwerke, and many others. This was a real industry. Steel, wood for stocks, complex metalworking, all of this required raw materials and skilled workers. Cost and efficiency. The exact cost of one 98K rifle varied, but on average it was about 70 to 80 Reichsmarks at the late 30s rate. For comparison, producing one MP40 submachine gun cost about 50 to 60 Reichsmarks. The difference seems small, but here, logistics and the concept of application come into play. The rifle is the infantry's main weapon. You need a lot of them. The submachine gun is a weapon for commanders, drivers, paratroopers. The German command long believed that mass equipping infantry with submachine guns led to wasteful ammunition expenditure and reduced accuracy. Therefore, the 98K was an economically advantageous solution, reliable, accurate, and cheap enough for mass production. Wartime simplifications. As the war dragged on and resources became scarce, the rifle began to be simplified. The bluing, the protective coating on the barrel disappeared. Stocks began to be made from cheap wood, sometimes laminated. The careful fitting of parts was lost. From 1944, models with primitive stamped metal sling attachments instead of milled ones appeared. This was an attempt at economy, but the reliability of the Mauser system was such that even these Spartan versions continued to serve faithfully. From an economic point of view, the 98K was the ideal weapon for Germany at the initial stage of the war, a proven, reliable design deployed across many factories with a relatively low cost. However, by the end of the war, the inability to organize mass production of more modern semi-automatic rifles like the G43 and the simplification of the 98K became one of the symptoms of the Third Reich's agony. The sniper's eyes, special versions, and unrealized projects. War is not just bayonet charges. It is also duels at a distance. Sniping in World War II reached a new level, and the 98K became the perfect platform for a sniper rifle. How was it done? Rifles that showed the best grouping accuracy were selected from serial batches. Telescopic sights were attached to them using special brackets. ZF-39, the first mass-produced sight, with 4-power magnification. It was mounted high above the bolt, which interfered with using standard stripper clips. The sniper had to load the rifle one round at a time, which reduced the rate of fire. ZF-41, a curious and rather unsuccessful experiment. A sight with 1.5 power magnification mounted on the side. It did not interfere with clip loading, but its low magnification made it useless for real sniper shooting. It was called a sight for sharpshooters, essentially for accurate infantrymen who were supposed to engage targets at distances up to 400 meters. High-power optics. Under the influence of Soviet snipers like Vasily Zaitsev, the Germans began to introduce more serious sights, the ZF-4, 4-power, as well as commercial models from Hensoldt and Karl Zeiss with up to 6-power magnification. Such rifles were formidable weapons in skilled hands. According to various estimates, about 132,000 sniper modifications of the 98K were produced throughout the war. A huge number, but against the total production of over 14 million, it's a drop in the ocean. A sniper with optics was a rare and valuable specialist. Was there anything else? Exoticism based on the Mauser. The Germans, known for their love of technical curiosities, tried to create something fantastic based on the reliable rifle. Grenade launcher Gauer-Grenadier at 42, a muzzle attachment allowing the launching of rifle grenades to a range of up to 250 meters. Krumlauf, the craziest invention. A curved barrel attachment allowing firing from around corners. Versions existed for the 98K as well, but they were not widely used due to complexity and low barrel life. Winter Abzug, winter trigger, a special bracket that allowed pressing the trigger while wearing thick winter mittens. This exoticism shows how universal the Mauser platform was considered. They tried to adapt it for any, even the most insane tasks. The immortal legacy, life after the death of the Reich. The Third Reich fell in May 1945, but the 98K did not. Its history was just beginning. Over 15 million specimens scattered around the world as trophies, and each of these rifles wrote its own history. USSR, mountains of captured weapons. Some of the Mausers were converted into hunting carbines, the famous TOZ-55 Zuber and others. Others were sent to mobilization reserve warehouses, and many were given to allies in the socialist camp. There's evidence that Mausers were used in the Korean War and in Vietnam. Israel. This is a separate story. The young state of Israel, under an embargo, bought any weapons it could get from around the world. A huge number of 98Ks entered service with the Israel Defense Forces. They were used in the War of Independence and the Six-Day War of 1967. A German rifle against Arab armies armed, among other things, with Soviet weapons, quite a historical paradox. Czechoslovakia and Yugoslavia. These countries became the largest post-war producers of Mauser clones. The Yugoslav Zastava produced its own version, the M48 model. It was almost a copy of the 98K, but with some simplifications. The quality of the Yugoslav rifles was very high. And amazingly sporting and hunting versions based on the M48 are still produced by Zastava to this day. That is the real legacy. Mauser today. After the war, the Mauser company was revived in the FRG and no longer produced military rifles by the millions, but focused on the high-end civilian weapons market. Hunting and sporting rifles based on that very same 1898 system are still considered the benchmark of quality and reliability. The Mauser design formed the basis of almost all modern bolt actions. Look at any modern bolt-action rifle, the Remington 700, Winchester 70, Saiga MK. In all of them, you will find features first combined by the genius of Paul Mauser. Why this story is important for us today. We live in a world of digital technology and smart gadgets, but the history of the Mauser 98 teaches us eternal values, simplicity, reliability, fidelity to principles. It is a monument to engineering thought that did not chase fleeting trends but created something fundamental. This is a weapon that outlived empires, dictatorships, and wars. It was a tool of destruction, but today it has become a collector's item, a symbol of history, and a reminder of those terrible lessons that humanity must not forget. The next time you see this rifle with its characteristic bent bolt in a museum or at a shooting range, remember this story. Remember the soldier in the trench, the sniper in the ruins of Stalingrad, the IDF fighter at the Western Wall. You are holding not just a piece of wood and metal. You are holding history. Friends, that concludes our story. I hope it was as exciting a journey for you as it was for me. If you enjoyed it, if you learned something new, then our work was not in vain. Support us. Subscribe to the channel. There are many more incredible stories about weapons, history, and technology ahead. Write a comment. What amazed you most about the Mauser story? Maybe your grandfather had a trophy carbine, or you shot one yourself. Your stories and opinions are the fuel for our future releases. Like and share this video with your friends. Let as many people as possible learn this amazing saga of the steel legend. Thank you for being with us. See you next time in the world of history.